Roll. So, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. So, for those joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Right now, we are joined by 5 classes from across North America, so I want to give them a chance to do a bit of a shout-out. We've got Miss Philpotts, grade 2s in San Antonio, Texas.
Ready?
Yes! That is setting the bar very high for excitement. We've got Mr. Blake's grade 6 in Brampton, Ontario. Hey, guys. Hi. Nervous laughter from grade 6s. We've got Miss Harndon's grade K through 4s in San Antonio as well. Texas is just like, you guys are living up to your reputation of excitement. We've got Miss Mays, grade 1s in Kelowna, BC. Hi, guys. Oh. Hi, guys. All right, and we've got Miss Littles, 1 and 2s in Dutton, Ontario. Hi, guys. Awesome. Of course, the reason you guys are all here today and are so excited is we are joined live from the Vancouver Aquarium in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, one of the elite and amazing aquariums in the entire world, by Rachel Bell Irving, who is going to take us on a little tour of the facility and showcase the wide and wonderful world of camouflage and all the cool animals that utilize it to protect themselves. So without further ado, thanks so much for joining us, Rachel, and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jesse. So yeah, hi, everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. As you said, I'm in Vancouver. Oceanwise runs the aquarium here located in Stanley Park on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations peoples, which means that I am right in the middle of a rainforest, both on land and underwater. And because of that, we see a whole range of animals using that amazing ability called camouflage. Now, when most people think about camouflage, the first thing that comes to mind is color. If we're in the trees, we want to be green so that we blend in with those leaves, and that's a really useful tactic. But camouflage can come in lots of different shapes and sizes even, and it all depends on where those animals are from. So this is the important thing of today, is remembering that the home that you have really influences how these animals survive. And so we're going to talk about a few of those different strategies today. I'm going to show you some pictures, highlight some of my favorite animals, and then we'll have lots of times for questions at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and share my little presentation here. You're going to see Jesse for a couple seconds. And then there we go. So this is where I'm located currently. I am on the western side of Canada, where that nice bright red circle is. This is a picture of our wonderful aquarium located in Stanley Park. And so I'm going to highlight one of those animals that we find here in Stanley Park, and that is this wonderful little creature here. This is called a tube snout fish, and they're a cold water species that's actually related to seahorses. So if you take a seahorse and you straighten out its tail, that is what a tube snout looks like. So if we just start with using our eyes only, and we want to start thinking of some observations. So think to yourself, what do you see on this animal? What stands out to you? If I'm a scientist, those observations are the first thing that I'm always going to start with when I discover a new animal. So the first thing that I notice right now is the color. It's nice and bright and green, so that's really cool. And also the body shape is really important for many fish. We've got a really long, skinny body, very much like a pencil. So I'm trying to think of what kind of home would be best suited for an animal like this. It's a very small fish. If you hold up stretch out your thumb and your pointer finger, and that's about how long the tube snout can be. So they're quite a small fish, which means they're really excellent food source for bigger fish, and they have to be able to hide. So thanks to this body shape with the green and the long, skinny body, we can expect to find the tube snout in a habitat like this. This is what we call an eelgrass meadow, which is lots of these nice, wonderful underwater plants. And so this is a perfect home for a tube fish. And so not only is the color great, but the body shape is perfect because that long, skinny body looks exactly like the grass that the tube snouts are hiding in. So this is a really good example of how animals might even change the way their body is formed to match the habitat that they live in. Tube snout being nice and long and skinny to match with that eelgrass habitat. A very, very cool animal. And even when we see them swimming away from The eelgrass, if we see them out in the open water, all those skinny lines are a tube snout. And when they swarm together, they might look like a different type of fish. They might even just look like logs or debris. And so they work together as well when they're small to help that camouflage match each other. So these are some tube snout off the coast of British Columbia as well. Very cool animal. Body size and shape is really useful for camouflage just as much as that green color. And sometimes animals aren't even just going to be colorful. They might be black and white. And even that is a really good camouflage. This is a black-tip reef shark. We have black-tip reef sharks here at the aquarium, and they live in what we call the pelagic zone. So they live in open water. They're a pelagic animal, an open water fish. And that means that there's really nowhere to hide. This shark is definitely going to be prey for other bigger sharks, maybe even some whales as well, like orca whales, or bigger sharks or bigger things like that that live in the tropical waters. So they have to make sure that they're able to survive as well. But they're a predator, and that means that they have to be able to sneak up on their prey too. So this camouflage works both ways. It keeps them safe from their predators, but it also allows them to sneak up on their food. So how does this camouflage work? We call this counter shading, and it's very common to see both mostly in cold water and sometimes in warm water animals as well. This is a picture of Helen. She's our Pacific white-sided dolphin at the aquarium. She's a non-releasable animal because she got caught in fishing nets and it actually damaged her pectoral fins. So she's unable to be released in the wild. And she's here as an ambassador to help other students learn about these amazing animals. And you can see her camouflage really well in this picture. You've got a nice dark back and a really bright stomach. So I want you all to imagine that you're swimming in a habitat.
Oh, there we go.
I want you to imagine that you're swimming in a habitat like this. So you've got the sun above you and you've got a really dark ocean floor below. Now, if we're an orca whale and we're hunting for some salmon, we want to try and find a salmon. They've got a really nice dark back and a really shiny tummy. So we're swimming along and we're at the top of the water and we look down. We're trying to find our food, but it's really dark down there. And that's because that black back of the fish blends in with the dark habitat. So if you're a predator looking down, it's really hard to find your prey when their back blends in with the dark ocean floor. Now, if we decide to dive down as orca whales and we're gonna look up for our food, maybe we can ambush them if we look up and we can surprise them. But the sun is shining bright at the top of the ocean. It's much lighter up there. And now we have a hard time finding our food because their white stomach blends in with that bright upper layer of the ocean. So that's why this camouflage is so helpful when you've got a dark back to help you blend in with the ocean bottom, but a white tummy to blend in with the light above. We call this type of camouflage counter shading. So they've got two different shades, both black and white, to help them blend in with the light. Sometimes you don't have places to hide. You have to be able to hide in plain sight. And that's why using the light of your environment is really, really helpful. And we'll often see it too sometimes in animals that live in really bright areas, like these angelfish here. They're actually in the habitat behind me, which I'll give you a chance to see when I'm done my little pictures. And so these animals live in the Amazon rainforest, where it's sunny almost all of the time. And with all of that sunlight streaming through, they have these really bright scales to reflect that light. So they're all shiny and sparkly, and they blend in with the sunlight that's in the water. This is also a really useful camouflage. Sometimes you don't have to be colorful. Sometimes you just have to work with the light that's around you. And it works when you live in dark habitats too. This is a 6-gill shark. And we've got, again, that dark, dark back of a body. Here's our wonderful 6-gill shark. Awesome. Whoop. So you see that dark back that's blending in with the dark ocean bottom. So sometimes animals will have a body shape that matches their environment. Other times, animals are going to have different shades, like black and white, to match the light of their habitat. And sometimes they're going to have both, like this wonderful little animal here. If everyone puts your hand into a fist, ball up your fist nice and tight. That is the size of this animal. It's called a sea urchin. We also find them all around the world. This purple sea urchin is from Vancouver, and they have both that tiny body shape that looks kind of like rocks and the bottom of the bumpy ocean floor to blend in. And they also are a nice dark color. So they're gonna blend in really, really well with the ocean floor where they're from. If we were to go diving with some sea urchins, let's go some diving with some sea urchins, and we'll take a look what they look like in their natural habitat. Whoops. There we go, here we go. All right, we've got a whole army of red sea urchins here. They're matching in with those rocks, and they still have wonderful protection with those spikes, but their ball-like shape and their dark colors help them to blend in with all of those crevices between the rocks and the sand and help them to hide in an environment. They mostly are found in places like this, which is a kelp forest. So when you're in a dark forest, it's really nice to look like not only the rocks you might find, but the colors as well. So these are just a few of those different types of animals that we have that help them to survive in different environments as well. Whether they're looking at the light that they live in, so if it's bright and shiny, or whether they're going to be in a really colorful habitat and they need it to be nice and dark, or they want to be shiny. So the fish that I have behind me, many of these fish come with really shiny, shiny scales because there's so much sunlight and they can sparkle like that. And then other fish might be skinny like eelgrass. Other fish might be black and white to look like that dark ocean bottom. There's lots of different strategies to survive when it comes to camouflage. Now, those are just some of my favorite animals, but we do have lots of time for some questions, and I can go into some more animals if you like. But those are the three key things to remember about camouflage. The environment that you live in influences how these animals look and the colors that they are. So next time you're outside and you're looking at some animals where you live, think about why they look that way. For example, let's think about why are squirrels brown and gray and black? Maybe because they're living up in the shadows of the trees, and that's a really good way for them to camouflage from predators. So thinking about where an animal lives, whether it's your backyard or a different ecosystem, is going to tell you a lot about why animals look the way they do. And camouflage is one of the best ways to stay alive. Even humans have learned a lot about camouflage from animals, and we apply these things for when we're trying to survive out in our wild as well. Sometimes we don't want to camouflage. If you ever go hiking in the woods, for example, is it better to wear green or orange? Most times we say orange because if you get lost, we want you to be easy to find. So always thinking about your environment around you is really helpful for understanding camouflage and the colors that they are. So there is a spiel from me, and I would like to know if you have any questions about camouflage and these amazing animals as well.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Rachel. All right, so let's start off with Miss Philpott's class. If you guys have a question to pick us off, go right ahead.
All right, go ahead, really loud.
Why do the animals underwater have to camouflage, but why do some don't camouflage?
Did you hear it okay?
Part of it cut out.
Okay, so she said, why do some animals camouflage underwater and some don't?
Oh, that's a really good question. I love that question because sometimes we do see animals that are really, they stand out against their background, which can be dangerous for them. So the reason that they do that is because it's actually more beneficial for them to stand out, usually because they want to find a mate. They want to find someone that they can have babies with. So that way, if they actually are able to survive with those really out crazy features, it means that they're strong enough to be a parent. So that's what some species of animals look like. They actually give up on camouflage to prove that they're strong enough to have babies. We call that sexual selection. So that might be one reason why they look weird.
Very cool. Good question. All right, let's go to Mr. Blake's group. If you guys have a question, take it.
I know. Is octopus spit a poison?
Are octopus poisonous?
No, like spit, like the spit.
Oh, that whole, so the ink is not poisonous. Oftentimes you can actually find recipes for squid ink pasta. If you actually put that ink into pasta to dye it black. Some octopus are what we call venomous. And this is a really important difference. You can show all your friends how smart you are by knowing the difference between poisonous and venomous. So poisonous means that you actually have to eat it or lick it in order to get sick. If you think about someone being poisoned, or if you were to lick a poisonous frog, that's because you've actually put it inside your body and you've ingested it. And that means you've poisoned. Toxins are what's going to make you sick after you've been poisoned. Venom, on the other hand, is something that's actually injected to your body. So if you get stung or you get bit or something like that. So bee stings, jellyfish stings, and some octopus bites can be venomous. We don't have many of those in cold water, mostly in tropical ecosystems.
Now, you mentioned venomous animals, and I want to go back to the first question just for a second, because the question was, why might some things be really colorful, which I think is really neat, related to things being venomous?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of animals will color themselves purposefully bright so that their predators know that they're venomous. And even some species have pretended to be poisonous when they're not. There's a mimic poison frog that is all bright and colorful to try and trick its predators into thinking it's poison. So that's another really good strategy.
Cool. All right, let's head to Miss Harden's group. If you guys have a question.
What's your question? Can you say it really loud?
When's the big longest animal? Animal. Shark.
What's the biggest animal that you have at the aquarium?
Oh, good.
I love that. I got So the biggest fish that we have is actually behind me. It's not this one. He is swimming around. He's kind of hiding in the corner back there. It's called an arapaima. It's a fish from the Amazon rainforest, the Amazon River. It can be about the size of a small car. So if you actually took two of your students and you lined up from toe to head and head to toe, and you lined up beside each other like that, that would be how long it is. You have to stack two of you on top of each other. That's the biggest fish that we have.
Very cool. How much does it weigh? Do you know offhand?
Oh, it's somewhere between. I had this question before and I've forgotten the answer. It's heavy. It is very, very heavy. I remember that.
Okay. Awesome. All right, let's head to Miss May's group. If you guys have a question, go ahead.
We have a question. Hello. We have a question from Hannah. Hannah was wondering if there are any fish that camouflage based on their shape, not their color.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you. That tube snout that we first looked at, which you might have missed, is a good example where that body shape is a fantastic form of camouflage. For example, we've got fish like the tube snout that are long and skinny, and they're often found living amongst grass under the water. So because they're long and skinny, they look exactly like the grass. And that's a really good way for them to camouflage. So body shape, absolutely. They can try and pretend to look like something in their environment. If you've ever played hide and go seek, for example, or if you've played camouflage out in your backyard, oftentimes we'll kind of curl up into a rock to pretend to be a rock. And that's a good way for humans to hide too. So you can try it out in your own neighborhood and see which body shapes work best for you.
And when people ask you what you're doing, you can say you watched a great camouflage presentation in Vancouver. All right, let's go to Miss Little's group. If you guys have a question.
How did you get that job?
Thank you for asking that. I appreciate that question. How did I get my job? So I started out, after I finished university, I started working as a summer camp counselor. So I got to take kids just like you. We would hang out for a whole week and we would learn about animals. And then after that, they offered me a job to do this because I had some practice teaching. I studied both zoology, which is the study of animals, but I also studied classical studies, which is ancient history. So you don't necessarily have to have a biology degree, but passion is really important. So as long as you're doing something you love, you're going to find a job that suits you pretty well.
Awesome. I always love when that question gets asked. All right, let's head to Miss Graves' group. I know you guys came in a little late, but hopefully you're good. You have a question? Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. Oh, you were good. You muted yourselves. Here.
Can animals eat sea urchins?
Can animals eat sea urchins?
Yeah, that's the question.
Whoa. I like that you thought of that because they look pretty scary to eat when you see them. Humans eat a lot of sea urchins. If you've ever had sushi and you see on the menu there's something called uni, that is sea urchin. So humans are a big predator of sea urchins. We also have sea otters, which are those really cute little fluffy, adorable mammals. They love to eat sea otters. And what they do is they will actually keep a favorite rock with them at all times. They're one of the few animals that can use tools, and they will keep a rock in their armpit and they'll pull it out later and they'll use it to smash open the sea urchin so they can eat it. So those are some of the biggest animals, but even some animals called a wolf eel, which have really powerful jaws, also can eat sea urchins. You just have to have a way to break them open.
Very cool. That was the most excited I've ever seen anyone about the prospect of a sea otter cracking into an urchin, so thank you for that. Let's go to Ms. Cochran's group. I know you guys came in a little late too, but if you have a question, go right ahead.
Do some animals camouflage in some?
Oh, I just missed the last word.
Do some animals camouflage in seaweed?
In seaweed?
Sorry, yeah, it's really quiet with you guys. Seaweed, yes? Yes, good. Okay.
Okay, yes. Yeah, seaweed is a really very helpful habitat to hide in because it's really complex and you've got lots of things going on. So color to match the seaweed is often for a lot of animals, as well as that body shape that we see when they're long and skinny. There's a really cool fish called a gunnel, and it looks like an eel. It's not an eel, it's still a fish, but it has that really long, skinny body shape. And so it can weave its way through the eelgrass or the seaweed, and that's a really good place to hide too. And we often see a lot of invertebrates, so animals with no bones that tend to be smaller. We see many of them having the same kind of reds and browns that you'll see on seaweed, so that way they can blend in when they're holding on and eating.
Nice. So before we do another whole round of questions, I forgot to introduce the classes. So Ms. Graves' group is grade 1 and 2s in Coquitlam, BC, and Ms. Cochran's group is grade 4s in Niagara Falls, Ontario. So welcome, guys, and thanks for coming in. Let's head back to Ms. Philpott's class.
Do animals color change?
Do animals camouflage when they're scared?
Yeah, I think if I were an animal, I would definitely want to use camouflage to hide. And some of them, like you said, can change their color. So that's like next level camouflage when you're able to change your colors. We think about octopus and squid. They're able to change the outside of their colors to match with the habitat. So that is really complex, very cool camouflage. That way it helps too when you're scared and you have to really quickly be able to hide where you live. And some fish also can do that too. I'm going to try and share another picture because my favorite fish can do this. And we're going to see Jesse again for a second. So my favorite fish is this little guy. It's got the coolest name ever. It's called a Pacific spiny lump sucker, which I think is just the best name ever. And this little lump sucker is able to change its colors slightly, mostly between kind of green to brown, so that it blends in with its habitat because it's a really bad swimmer. If you imagine a golf ball and you try to stick flippers on it, that's what the lumpsucker looks like trying to swim. It's not a very strong swimmer. So they can change their color to help them hide as they stick to the rocks with this really cool suction cup on the bottom of their belly. So I think they're adorable. There's one of our other ones that's green. They're just very, very cute. So that's another way that sometimes these animals can do that too.
Super cute. It's worth noting too, just when camouflage gets brought up, a lot of people know that chameleons can change color. They don't change color to blend in with their environment. They change it based on their emotions. So if they're angry, they turn bigger and turn black and other colors like that. So that's just something that's worth noting. All right, let's go to Mr. Blake's class for second one.
How many species of fish have you found?
Have we? Yeah, that's a big question because the ocean covers 71% of the entire planet, so like 2/3 of the pie, but we've only explored 5%. So of majority of the planet, we've only looked at like 5% of 71 of the planet's surface. So we know more about Mars than we do about our own planet, which to me is mind-blowing. So there's lots of fish that we know of. Fish make up about 50% of vertebrates, so bony animals, but there's still a lot that we might not know, and that number changes every day. It's over 50,000 species, but there's a lot that we probably haven't even found yet.
Very cool. Some of the hangouts that we've done with deep sea scientists especially, you see new animals every time you go down there, and we can pass that to classes if you're interested in seeing the sort of weird fish that we've discovered in the last few years. All right, let's head to Miss Harnden's group.
So how many different varieties or species do you have there at the aquarium?
At the aquarium, we have around 750 different species and over 40,000 individual animals. We take our animals incredibly seriously. We are American Zoos and Aquariums certified, as well as Canadian Aquarium and Zoos Association certified. And so those certifications mean that we have to have a really high level of standard for animal care. So we take care of every animal from the tiny little snail to the dolphin. Everybody matters. And we've got, it changes every day, but we've got over 40,000 individuals or so.
Very cool. All right, let's head to Miss May's class.
We were wondering if there are any fish that can change color to fit in with their surroundings.
Yeah, any fish that can change color. The octopus and the cephalopods are the best at changing colors, but those are invertebrates. Some fish can change their colors. The lumpsucker that I showed you can do so. And we find sometimes that animals over a couple months will permanently change their colors to match their environment. So for example, flounders, with those flatfish that live on the bottom, we had a couple that are normally used to sandy bottoms. And when we moved them, this was an experiment done in Korea where they actually used these commercially fish. They had a fish that's normally meant for sandy bottoms, and they usually have really white or clear fins. They raised these fish on a blank surface, so like in a tub. And those fins became really dark and black because they've now been raised in an area that's really dark and black, as opposed to a very pale sand bottom. So sometimes animals in one lifetime will permanently change their color too. And we see that a couple times here as well when we move them from different habitats. They'll kind of get lighter if they're moved to a lighter habitat, which is really interesting that some fish will do that throughout their lifetime.
Super cool. Before we go into the last three questions, I just wanted to, just for classes that might not know, could you explain what an invertebrate is as opposed to a vertebrate?
Yeah, an invertebrate is an animal that has no bones. So if you take a feel on the back of your neck and you can feel those bumps there, that makes you a vertebrate. Each of those bones are called vertebrae. It means that you're a bony animal or you have a spine of some kind. So invertebrates have no spine, and they come in lots of different shapes and sizes. They're the coolest animals ever, in my opinion.
Cooler than sea otters that crack things with rocks? Like, really?
Yeah, I mean, the sea otters are cute, don't get me wrong. They're adorable. I love them. But there are a whole other world when it comes to animals that aren't limited by bones. They come in lots of different shapes and sizes.
All right, let's head to Miss Little's class. Do you guys have a question?
Stand right up.
Why do fish have to stay in water?
Oh, why do fish have to stay in water? Very curious question. That's because over hundreds and hundreds of years, they are perfectly designed to live in water. And you are perfectly designed to live on land. If you take a really deep breath of air, whew, those lungs inside of your chest help you to live on land. Fish don't have those lungs. Instead, they have gills on the side of their body. And of course, my demos hide when I want to talk about their gills. But what those gills do is rather than taking oxygen out of the air, they pull oxygen out of the water using those gills. Because they have gills, they don't have legs, they're perfectly designed for living in the water instead of land.
Very cool. All right, let's head to Miss Graves' group.
So Theo, come on up to the camera. You're going to speak really clearly, okay? Class, you need to be quiet.
Oh.
Or soft.
Start that again. Sorry, you were.
Say it again.
Is a dog whelk's tongue rough or a bit softer for slurping up the clams they eat?
Sorry, which animal?
What animal? Dog.
Dog whelk snail.
Dog whelk snail. Hold on. I gotta look that up because dog whelk snail. Just so I know which snail you're referring to. Is that the one on land? Dog whelk snail. Ocean. Huh. Are they? Oh, sorry, you're muted.
Oh, I can unmute them.
Say where they live. They live
Often tide pools and also in the intertidal zone.
Oh, that is, thank you for teaching me new animals. I haven't heard about them before. Snails in general, their body is soft and then they've got that hard shell. But what's cool about the snails is they have a special tongue called a radula. And that tongue, it feels kind of like a cat's tongue if you've ever been licked by a cat. It's really rough. So it's a tongue that's covered in little barbs. So kind of both hard and soft. And they use that tongue to do that scraping and to eat all the things that they need to eat. So all snails are going to have that radula. They're kind of a little bit of everything. They're both hard and soft, which is thank you for teaching me a new species, though. I'm going to go look that up after.
Awesome. All right, we'll do a second whole follow-up hangout just on the cool snail. Let's do it. All right, we'll end off with one more question from classes from Miss Cochran's group. And come on up, guys.
How do you catch fish?
Yeah.
That's it's hard to try and plan out. There's lots of different ways you can catch fish. I think if you're gonna catch fish to eat, then it's really important you be responsible about the fish that you're eating. Because there's lots of very unsafe fishing practices out there. People that are either catching too much, or they're damaging habitats, or they're catching other animals by accident. So if you're catching fish to eat, the best thing to do is a hook and a reel. Or you can go diving and try and spear or catch some of those animals that way. And if you're out looking for food at a restaurant, try and find something that's got a little seafood logo beside it. That usually means it's caught in a way that's nice for the environment. When we are doing collections here for our animals, we will often trade with other animals or other aquariums, or we actually will grow the fish ourselves. So we actually breed them and have eggs and do that way. And if we do collect from the wild, which the government has allowed us to do, then it's oftentimes with a net and a bag, which can take a while, but that's the safest way for them to be caught.
And you guys are able to breed some of your animals on site?
Yes, mostly we focus on cold water animals for the West Coast and Arctic. We're one of the only organizations that do a lot of Arctic, so that's a big research project for us.
Very cool. All right, Rachel, so before we wrap up, is there any last messages you want to share with the classes where they can find out more information about camouflage, about the aquarium? Any last thing to encourage people to get excited about the ocean?
Absolutely. The best thing to do about being curious about the ocean is go outside and look at where water is where you are. Because water is connected across the entire planet through the rain, through lakes and rivers, and it all leads back to the ocean. So I really encourage you to go outside and be curious and look at where water is in your life and how do you use water? Because we share it with all these amazing animals, which means we have a responsibility to take care of it. The first thing to do is go figure out where water is where you live and have fun with it. Keep asking these amazing questions. And if you want to know more, you can visit ocean.org. And we've got lots of things there to help you explore some more stories.
Very cool. And I think the arapaima is behind you, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Oh, hello. Yes, that's the arapaima. So that's the biggest fish that we have. See if I can follow it a little bit. There we go. That's our big fish. He's still not fully grown. He's less than 5 years old. So he's going to keep getting bigger.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. So what we do at the end of every hangout, and boys and girls, if you guys want to get ready, we're going to demute everyone's microphones, and you guys can all say a huge thank you to Rachel and the aquarium for today, guys. Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Awesome, guys. All right. So as I mute you guys one last time, Awesome. Yeah, if you guys are interested in sea life, we do many hangouts with the Vancouver Aquarium by Oceanwise. We do it with Ripley's Aquarium. Please join us back soon. Rachel, that was marvelous. Thanks so much for being a part today.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day, everybody.